Greetings, this is Reverend Yue McCormick of True Vow Temple. In this presentation, I will be talking about the Unzo, or directing our intention, that is used in the morning and evening devotional practice and other services of Nichiren Buddhism. The Unzo, which means directing our intention, or even directing thought, can be found in the Shute Nichiren Shu Hoyoshiki, Nichiren Shu's official manual of practice for the clergy. It is actually a very short reflection consisting of only 3 sentences in Japanese, composed by Udana in Nichiki. It is meant to be used after chanting the sutra and before chanting the Odaimoku. Udana in Nichiki was a great scholar and reformer of Nichiren Buddhism who helped to establish the modern education system of the Nichiren Shu. He composed several of the reflections, such as Unzo, found in the Hoyoshiki, which is still used in Nichiren Shu services to this day. Nichiki Shonin's disciple, Arai Nisatsu, became the first archbishop of Nichiren Shu. Quoting an earlier liturgical manual, the Hoyoshiki has this to say about the purpose of using the Unzo in a service after chanting the sutra, which is called the practice of Dokuju, but before chanting the Odaimoku, the practice of Shodai. In the Raiju Giki, it says, Unzo is a deep and contemplative thinking. In Dokuju, reading and reciting the sutra, whether chanting in Sino-Japanese or the vernacular, it is difficult to maintain deep and contemplative thought. During Shodai, it is easy to maintain deep and contemplative thought. The reason is that, when doing Dokuju, we must chant while concentrating on only the characters and phrases of the sutra, so that we do not misread or skip any of them. During Shodai, though it is easy to maintain deep and contemplative thinking, it is also easy to get distracted and even bored. So beforehand we do Unzo to reflect on the meaning of the Dokuju, and to manifest a pure mind during Shodai. That is why we need to have Unzo after Dokuju and before Shodai. Let's now look at these 3 sentences. The first one says, Tonae tatematsuru myoho ra kore sanzei shobutsu shosho no kyogai jogyo sata ryozen beppu no shinjo daiho nari. This literally means, the wonderful Dharma that we now chant is what all the Buddhas of the 3 times have realized, the true and pure great Dharma that was specifically transmitted to superior practice Bodhisattva on Mount Sacred Eagle. The version that we are currently using is based on a translation from the Nichiren Shu service book printed back in 2007. This version in turn was based on the English translation of the Shingyo Hike, a handbook for members of the Nichiren order that was published in 1978. This version reads, The wonderful Dharma, expounded in the Lotus Sutra, whose sacred title we now chant, is what the past Buddhas taught, the present Buddhas are teaching, and the future Buddhas shall teach. It is the great Dharma, true and pure, the propagation of which was entrusted primarily to the great Bodhisattva superior practice by the Buddha on Mount Sacred Eagle. Now let's look more closely at some specific terms and ideas in this sentence. The phrase Kore Sanzei Shobutsu Shosho no Kyogai I have translated as what all the Buddhas of the 3 times have realized. In the 1978 translation, it was rendered as what the past Buddhas taught, the present Buddhas are teaching, and the future Buddhas shall teach. Now, Kore means this, or more specifically, it means this thing which is close to us. Sanzei means 3 times. And Shobutsu means all Buddhas. So Sanzei Shobutsu means all the Buddhas of the 3 times, or past Buddhas, present Buddhas, and future Buddhas. Kyogai is a compound that usually means a boundary, realm, or state. In Buddhist texts, however, this compound is used to translate the Sanskrit terms Visaya and Gochara. Visaya means the realm to which one's power of perception extends, or to which one's power to act extends. Gochara means the sphere wherein one acts, and the realm in which one's actions come to fruition. In either case, these 2 terms indicate the object of awareness. So this compound, kyogai, can be taken to mean perceptual object, or even all the perceptual objects of this realm of cause and effect. No is a Japanese hiragana character that means of or belonging to. In this case, the next word, shosho, pertains to the perceptual object. Shosho is a compound that means that which is realized. It is a translation of the Sanskrit term anubhuta, which means that which is realized, or that which is awakened to. Note that the second character in this compound, sho, can mean proof, evidence, certification, verification, guarantee, or witness. It is the same character used for the three proofs, as in documentary proof, theoretical proof, and actual proof. So this phrase seems to mean that all the Buddhas of the three times have realized or verified the true nature of all perceptual objects, which is the wonderful Dharma. Of course, this is the basis for their teachings, but I believe this phrase is not about their teaching of it, but their realization of it. The 1978 translation, though, has taught, teaching, and shall teach, whereas I believe shosho no kyogai should be understood as what they have realized. Now this sentence is asserting that the wonderful Dharma that we now chant is what all the Buddhas of the three times have realized. Of course, this is what the Lotus Sutra tells us, that all the Buddhas of the past, like many treasures Buddha, the historical Shakyamuni Buddha of our current dispensation of the Dharma, and all future Buddhas such as Maitreya Buddha will teach. I do think it is justified to say that the Odaimoku expresses what all the Buddhas of the three times realize and teach. The Dharma we recollect when we chant Odaimoku is more than just a conceptual doctrine or method of practice. The words of the Odaimoku point to a certain view, attitude, or stance that is most explicitly expressed in the Lotus Sutra through mythic imagery, poetry, parable, and paradox. It is a verbal encapsulation of what is implicitly present throughout the Buddha's life and teachings. As an example of how the Odaimoku can be seen as present in Buddhism from the very beginning, let's look at the stories about the Buddha's two encounters with the Vedic creator deity known as Brahma, immediately after his awakening beneath the Bodhi tree. These two meetings express the elements of the phrase devotion to the teaching of the lotus flower of the wonderful Dharma. Upon arising from the Bodhi tree, the Buddha considered whom he should revere as his teacher. He realized that it was no other than the Saddharma, the wonderful Dharma, which had been his teacher. He then paid reverence to the wonderful Dharma. In response, Brahma appeared and said, "The Buddhas of the past, the future Buddhas, and he who is the Buddha now, removing the sorrow of many, all have dwelt, will dwell, and dwell deeply, revering the wonderful Dharma. For the Buddhas, this is a natural law. Therefore, one desiring his own good, aspiring for spiritual greatness, should deeply revere the wonderful Dharma, recollecting the Buddha's teaching. Therefore, paying reverence to the wonderful Dharma, which is what Namu Myoho means, is clearly stated to be what all Buddhas do, as well as how those who aspire to spiritual greatness should recollect the Dharma." On another occasion, the Buddha was hesitant to teach because he thought that other people would be unable to understand what he had realized. Brahma appeared once again to plead with him to teach the Dharma. The Buddha then saw that people were like lotus flowers at various stages of maturity growing in a pond. Some people were like lotus flowers on the verge of rising up from the muddy water and coming into bloom. If the Buddha were to teach these people, they would attain awakening. Here we see the symbol of the ringe, the lotus flower. Upon hearing Brahma's invitation, the Buddha, out of compassion for all beings, agreed to teach and provide the threads of discourse, or kyo, that would enable people to practice and attain awakening. These two stories dramatize the spirit of the historical Shakyamuni Buddha's life, his dedication to the wonderful Dharma that brought people's awakened qualities into bloom through his teachings and personal example. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo also expresses this spirit. This is also what is realized and taught by all Buddhas of the past, present, and future. Another important term in this first sentence is the compound beppu. It is part of the phrase beptsu fuzoku, which means specific transmission. The first character on the left, which is betsu, means separate or specific. The next two characters are a compound, fuzoku, which means to entrust. Here it is the entrustment of the Buddhas with the transmission of the teaching. What is being referred to here by beppu is the specific transmission by Shakyamuni Buddha of the essence of the Buddha Dharma in 4 phrases to superior practice bodhisattva and the other bodhisattvas appearing from underground, and the 21st, the supernatural powers of the Tathagata, chapter of the Lotus Sutra. The 4 phrases refer to the passage where the Buddha states that all the teachings, all the unhindered supernatural powers, all the treasury of the hidden core, and all the profound achievements of the Tathagata are revealed and expounded explicitly in the Lotus Sutra that he is transmitting. There is also a general transmission, So Fuzoku, which is the transmission of the Dharma to all the bodhisattvas from other worlds in the 22nd transmission chapter of the Lotus Sutra. This transmission is of the Lotus Sutra, but also the other provisional teachings that lead to it. In Nichiren Buddhism, it is understood to include the great masters of the past who taught the provisional sutras to prepare the way for the reception and practice of the Odaimoku. The next sentence says, Hito tabi mo namu myoho renge kyo to tanae tatematsu deba sunawachi ji no ichinen sanzen shokan joju shi jojakodo genzen shi musa sanji no kakutai araware warerera gyoja isai shujo to onaijiku hosho no do ni koshite jiju ho rakusen. This literally means, once we chant Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, we shall accomplish the correct contemplation of the actuality of the 3,000 realms in a single thought moment. The land of eternally tranquil light shall be manifest in our sight. The awakened entity of the uncreated 3 bodies will be manifest, and we practitioners, together with all sentient beings, will dwell in the land of the Dharma nature and experience the self-enjoyment of the bliss of the Dharma. The version we are using, based on the 1978 translation, says, once we chant the sacred title, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, we shall attain the right view that the 3,000 realms exist in our minds just as they are. The pure land of tranquil light shall be manifest in our sight. Our Buddha nature shall be identified with the Buddha of 3 bodies in one, and, together with all other beings, we shall enjoy living in the land of truth. A very important phrase that appears in this sentence is Ji no Ichinen Sanzen Shokan, the correct contemplation of the actuality of the 3,000 realms in a single thought moment. Sho of Shokan, the second to last Chinese character, means correct or even right. It is the same character used for each part of the Noble Eightfold Path, such as right view, right intention, etc. The last character, kan, means observation or contemplation. It is the same character used in shikan, the tiantai practice of calming and contemplation. What is being correctly contemplated when we chant Namu Myoho Renge Kyo? Ji no Ichinen Sanzen, the actuality of the 3,000 realms in a single thought moment. Now the 3,000 realms in a single thought moment would take an entire lecture, or perhaps several, to explain. Basically, it means that all actual and possible states of existence are to be found in a single moment of awareness in one manner or another. In fact, there would be no moments of awareness without all these interrelated phenomena, and no interrelating phenomena without the moment of awareness. Nichiren Shonin distinguished between the 3,000 realms in a single thought moment in terms of a principle that could be realized through the practice of calming and contemplation, and in terms of its phenomenal actuality in the practice of chanting the Odaimoku. Of this contrast between the principle and actuality of the 3,000 realms in a single thought moment, Nichiren Shonin wrote in Toki Nyudo Dono Gohenji Chibyo Sho, a response to lay priest Lord Toki, treatise on healing sickness. There are 2 ways of observing the 3,000 realms in a single thought moment. One is in terms of principle. The second is in terms of the actual phenomena. At the time of Tiantai and Dingyo and so on, it was observed in principle. Now it is observed in actual phenomena. Since the latter form of contemplation is superior, the great difficulties accompanying it are also superior. The former is of the 3,000 realms in a single thought moment of the provisional teaching of the Lotus Sutra, and the latter is the 3,000 realms in a single thought moment of the original teaching of the Lotus Sutra. They are as different as heaven and earth, and at the time of death you should keep this in mind. Another term that is important to know is Jo-Jak-Ko-Do, or the land of eternally tranquil light. This refers to the pure land of eternally tranquil light. In the Lotus Sutra, this Saha world, where people must endure various sufferings, is itself the pure land of the eternal Shakyamuni Buddha, revealed in the duration of the life of the Tathagata chapter. It is called the Pure Land of Eternally Tranquil Light in the contemplation of the Universal Sage Bodhisattva Sutra. Of course, this world doesn't appear to be a pure land of any kind, at least not to most of us most of the time. But through our practice, we endeavor to see for ourselves that actually this world is the land where the eternal Shakyamuni Buddha resides. It is a land where conditions are optimal for us to quickly attain Buddhahood in our very bodies. It is a land where actually there is no birth or death. We have great faith that this is so. We must therefore bring to a head our great doubt about why it does not seem to be so, and with great determination we must continue to chant the Odaimoku with joyful confidence until our doubt is resolved and our faith rewarded. Now the Unzo literally says, Musa Sanji no Kakutai Areware, the awakened entity of the uncreated three bodies will be manifest. Though the earlier translation says, our Buddha nature shall be identified with the Buddha of three bodies in one. Nothing is said about our Buddha nature or identifying it with the Buddha of three bodies in one in the Japanese original. What is being said here is that the awakened entity, the eternal Shakyamuni Buddha, will manifest in our lives when we chant the Odaimoku. The eternal Buddha is the unconditioned. The unconditioned has no birth or death, no appearance or disappearance, and so is uncreated and indestructible. The three uncreated bodies are the Dharma body, the reward body, and the accommodative body, and all three are of the awakened entity. All three are unborn and deathless. The Dharma body is simply the true nature of reality. The reward body is the wisdom that is manifest in our lives. The accommodative body is the selfless life of compassion that also manifests in, through, and around us. As Nichiren Shu says in Kanjin Hanzansho, Shakyamuni, the world-honored one, who attained supreme subtle awakening, is our flesh and blood. Isn't the merit of his causes and effects our bones and marrow? This sentence also refers to gyoja, we practitioners. This is part of a significant term that Nichiren applied to himself. Hokekyo no gyoja, the practitioner of the Lotus Sutra, meaning one who practices the teaching of the Lotus Sutra. In the Lotus Sutra, it is taught that those who practice the sutra after the passing of Shakyamuni Buddha will encounter great difficulties. So Nichiren Shonin believed that he was a practitioner of the Lotus Sutra because he experienced the various persecutions and difficulties that were predicted. In the Unzo, it is being affirmed that if we chant the Odaimoku with the same mind as Nichiren Shonin, then we too will be practitioners of the Lotus Sutra. Finally, we have the phrase Jiju Horaku, or self-enjoyment of the bliss of the Dharma. This is the bliss of enlightenment that Buddhas enjoy within themselves. It is the bliss or delight that only those who have fully awakened to the true nature of reality can know, but it is one that they wish all beings to share. The self-enjoyment of the bliss of the Dharma is personified by Vairocana Buddha, the idealized Buddha who presides over the pure land of tranquil light. But it is also said to describe the state of mind of Shakyamuni Buddha right after his awakening beneath the Bodhi tree, until the time he set out to teach the Dharma to others. The Unzo is asserting that through our practice of the Odaimoku, we and all other beings can come to share in this bliss. The final sentence says, Kono hoon o megurashite hokai ni juman shi sambo ni kuyo shi amaneku shujo ni hodokoshi daijo ichijutsu no kyogai ni irashime butsudo o gonjo shi shujo o ryakusen. This literally means, by spreading the sound of this Dharma, may it permeate the Dharma realm, be offered to the three treasures, be bestowed on all sentient beings, lead them to enter the one reality, the great vehicle, purify the Buddha land, and benefit all sentient beings. The version we are using based on the 1978 version says, May the sound of our chanting the sacred title permeate the whole world, be offered to the three treasures, and bestowed on all beings. May all beings enter the world of the one reality, the great vehicle. May the Buddha land be adorned, and all beings favored with the merits of our chanting. This last sentence is like a mini echo, or dedication to merit. It is a dedication of the merit of our chanting to the three treasures of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and to the awakening of all sentient beings. It is our conviction that our practice is not just for our own personal welfare or benefit, but for the benefit of all beings. Our practice is an expression of all causes and conditions of the Dharma realm, which is to say, all of reality, and the effect of our practice will, in turn, contribute to the ongoing welfare of reality as a whole without end. With that, this presentation on the Unzo, directing our intention, comes to a close. I look forward to your questions and comments. May the merits of this talk on the Dharma extend universally to all, so that we and all living beings together accomplish the Buddha way.